Alright, here we go. So we're going to do 11 and 12. And 11 and 12 is talking about plywood. Yeah. So 11 and 12 talks about putting plywood on a roof, right? Talking about how many rafters we're going to need. Okay? And this is very similar to the stud in the wall problem that we talked about. We didn't talk about it. So we're going to try to figure out the rule to the stud in the wall problem, because this is the one problem that students miss a lot. Okay? So first we understand that the rafters look like a triangle, right? They hold up your roof, okay? And these rafters, we talked about being, every 16 inches. So 16 inches on center. What that means is that for every 16 inches, we're going to put a rafter. Okay, so these holes are going to be 16 inches wide. Okay? Now, it says that the roof is 20 feet by 16 feet. So that means that this roof is 20 feet by 16 feet. Okay? Which means the rafter, we know, has to be 16 and 16, right? We don't know what this is going to be yet. But we know those rafters have to be 16 feet by 16 feet. It's an isosceles triangle, right? Okay? And all they want to know is how many do we need in a 20-foot section, right? Because it's 20 feet long. Does that make sense? So how many rafters do we need in 20 feet, right? So since we're doing 16 inches and this is in feet, we need to multiply the feet by how many inches there are in a feet, right? And then we can figure out how many inches are in 20 feet. Does that make sense? Okay, so what's 20 times 12? Because there's 12 inches in a foot, right?
20,
so
240? Yeah.
240 inches. Okay? Alright, then how many times does 16 go into 240? You take 240, right? And divide it by 16. We got 1. We know it goes in once. With 8 left over. And 16 goes into 80. Get it?
Almost.
Is it 18? 15? Perfect. So that means we need 15 rafters, right?
No.
Wrong.
No. Wrong.
Why are you telling me lies here?
Exactly. This is that stud in the wall problem. Remember, when we divide it by 16, what we're doing is figuring out how many holes that we have. So we have 15 holes, right? 15 16-inch pieces, right? We don't have 15 of these, because if we make 16 holes,
you have 17.
One, exactly. We make 15, well, if we make 15 holes, we'll have, if we made 16 holes, we'd have 17. If we have 15 holes, we'll have 16, right? So that means we need 16 rafters.
Wait, I thought 16 wasn't the answer. It was 17.
But, well, let's take a look. What if we need 3 holes? Use what we know to figure out what we don't know, right? So let's go, okay? And, okay, there's 3 holes right there. 3 rafters, right? So 3 rafters, and how many holes are in there?
Spaces?
1,
2,
2, right? So 3 rafters, 2 holes. 4 rafters,
5 holes. I mean, 3 holes.
3 holes, right? So always 1 less, right? 1 more rafter than we have holes. And it's the same thing for studs in the wall. If we have 15 holes for the wall, then we need 16 studs. That make sense? Okay? So remember that when you're doing problem 8. It's the same type of problem. So, we need 16. How many rafters?
17.
16 rafters.
Oh, wait.
Right? Because there's 15 holes.
Oh, yeah.
15 holes.
Oh,
Right?
so you're talking about that.
All right.
Okay.
All right, cool. Next, how much plywood do we need? Okay, so we have this roof, this understanding of a roof, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to make this roof better so we can see it. The last class had a hard time with it, okay? All right, okay, so we're going to put plywood on there. And remember, plywood is what?
Cheap.
It's 4 by 8, right? Now how big is this roof?
20 feet.
It's 16 by 20, right?
Yeah.
So if we put 4 by 8
It's supposed to be what?
and 4 by 8, right? Then there would be 2 pieces every 4 feet.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? So every 4 feet, how many pieces would you have? So 4 goes into 20 how many times? 5, right? So that means there would be 5 holes, right? In this case, there would be 5
So it's 4.
plywoods, right? 1, 2.
Carlo Lavoy, please dial 3716.
Does that make sense?
Carlo Lavoy, please dial
4,
3716.
8, 12, 16, 20, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? 10 pieces of plywood.
Yeah.
But we need it for both sides. So we need Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because we need it for both sides of the roof. So it's a 4 feet goes into 20 5 times, and that means we need 5 pieces of plywood, because plywood is not like the rafters, is it? It actually is the hole. Does that make sense? So we need 5 holes, which means we need 5 pieces of plywood. See the difference between rafters and plywood? And it's the same thing for your walls. Sheetrock versus studs, right? Your sheetrock is going to be just like your plywood, right? But your studs are going to be just like your rafters. Does that make sense? And that's problem 11 and 12. Questions before I end this? Pretty good?